Let us welcome Miss Cassandra Chiu.
Yellow diamonds in the light, and we're standing side by side as a shadow crosses mine. What it takes to come up.
Thank you all for giving me a moment to park my car. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Cassandra, and on the floor next to me is my four-legged eyes. Her name is Esme, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her later on. But what I like to do as a starter, maybe a little bit of a warm-up, since we've all been sitting for quite a while, to help you understand a little bit of why my life is a little bit different. I would like all of us to stand up just for a little bit, and if you would, can everyone just close your eyes for a quick moment? And, yep, I hear everyone standing up. Would you all just turn 3 rounds and say hello to the person on your right-hand side? 1, 2, and 3. Is it definitely the person on your right-hand side, or are you a little mixed up? Well, please take a seat, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Right, so I'm here today to share a little bit about my story with you. And like all stories, they all start with once upon a time. And once upon a time, quite some 30-something years ago in 1979, I was the firstborn of a very average Singaporean family. My mom was a secretary, and like Janice, my dad was a chef. I really enjoyed his food. Well, so I grew up a very normal child, just like most of you sitting out there, most of the ladies and the very few gentlemen. And my childhood was very much filled with fun, holidays, playtime. In the early days, there was something very close to this area called Wonderland. And that was the most fun thing in my childhood. But as I started getting a little older and going to school, when I started primary 1, and then I realized that things were starting to be a little bit different. There was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. My parents didn't know what it was. My teachers didn't know what it was. A lot of them thought that, hey, there's something wrong with this kid. Maybe she's like silly. She could be like retarded. But nobody thought that there could have been something wrong with my eyes, because from the outward appearance, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong. However, what my parents find out after going quite a number of rounds of different doctors was that I suffer from a condition known as Stargardt's, which leaves the nerves in my retina prematurely degenerating. And so as a result, what happened is from the age of 8, I very gradually started to lose my sight over the next number of years. But as I carried on in an ordinary setting within a mainstream school, I realized that it was very, very tough. I was trying extremely hard to catch the eye of my teacher, to do well in school, to get maybe not first, but at least like maybe top 3 in class, so that I could make my parents proud. I think all of us as students go through that stage in our life. We want to be good enough. But I just wasn't getting there because I wasn't recognizing that there is a problem. I wasn't recognizing that I am losing my sight. I wasn't recognizing that no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't read the board. So I was imagining what I was reading on the board, on the blackboard, or nowadays it's whiteboard. But along the way, as I was doing all of this, I was very, very angry, very lost, very directionless, because I didn't know what to do with my life. I was absolutely stuck and trying extremely hard to be someone I was not. And when I was about 8 or 9, probably a little older actually, about 10, I started swimming. I started learning how to swim. But it was very difficult because as I was learning how to swim in the pool, it was a frightening experience for me. I was drowning. I wasn't learning how the strokes right. It wasn't going on right. And it was a big struggle. But at that point in my life, during those struggles, those few years of struggles and frustration that I went through, I realized something which my coach shared with me, that if you believe that there is a way, you find the will to get there. You find the will to do it. And I told myself, okay, I might not be a very good student, but I want to learn how to swim. And I want to learn how to swim good enough that I can take part in a competition. So I started really putting effort into it. I told myself, look, I have one disability, one impairment that limits me, but there are many, 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 many more abilities that I do have in the pool. They are known as backstroke, freestyle, butterfly, and breaststroke. And that was what I excelled in. I started to swim and swim and swim. And what happened was I started taking part in competitions. I represented my school. Back then I was competing in inter-school competitions amongst the sighted children as well, sighted students as well. And I started doing good. I wouldn't even say winning. I started first by getting into the finals and then slowly making my way up from a bronze to a silver and to gold medals. And later on, I started taking part in international competitions as well within the disabled arena. And in 1996, I was very, very proud that I was awarded the inaugural Disabled Sportswoman of the Year, and that really gave me a very big pat on my shoulder to say that, hey, when I really focus hard on what I want to achieve, and I have the will to do it, and I believe that I can do it, I get there. I do. Well, that was the early part of my childhood. But today in my life, I am no longer an athlete. I'm a little bit old to be a competitive athlete. And I have many other different roles in my life today. I am a mother to a wonderful 7-year-old daughter. And besides that, I'm also a professional. I run a small counseling practice, and I'm an advocate for disability rights. Besides that, I'm also a very active person. I get around on my own and believe very strongly in independence and freedom of mobility, which I'll share with you about a bit later. I think let's tell you a little story about my life as a mother. Right. When I decided that I wanted to have a child, many people said, are you really, really sure you want a child? Are you really sure you can manage? And when I did finally get a child, and in the hospital, the nurses were extremely worried. I wasn't encouraged to touch the baby. I wasn't looked upon kindly when I tried to pick up the baby or feed the baby or change the baby. And then I told myself, look, most of my life I've been quite dependent on other people, but now it's time for me to have someone else be dependent on me. And if I don't stand up and take up that responsibility, then I have no right to be a mother. And so I figured, well, there must be a way somehow if there's a will to do it. And I started looking at different ways I can manage a little child, how I could learn to bathe the child, how I could learn to change diapers, take thermometer. Babies always fall sick, right? Take a temperature, despite the fact that I can't read the thermometer. I found a talking thermometer. And my most enjoyable part as a mother was teaching my daughter how to read. I wasn't able to do so the regular way, but I got friends to help me, and I recorded stories into an MP3 player, which I was able to read aloud whilst flipping pages of children's stories like Little Red Riding Hood, Three Little Pigs, stuff like that. That was my role as a mother. But the more challenging part, I think, was my role as a student, right? I've got where I wanted to get in life, and I said, it's time to be a responsible person, time to be more than a responsible mother and play a role in my community, my society. It's time to do something for myself and be responsible to myself. I mean, it's not fair that I depend on others the rest of my life. So I wanted an education, and I tried to look for a university that would take me in. But I was told by quite a number that, I'm sorry, if you have a disability, too bad. We don't care how good your results is. We can't help you. I'm sorry. Go somewhere else. I refused to accept that as an answer, and I continued searching, and good for me, because I found a small little outfit, a school that said, well, we haven't had the experience of working with someone with a disability, especially one with a sight disability, but we're willing to give it a shot, and we believe that you have what it takes to make it through uni. And I was very thankful, and I went through school. I completed my master's in counseling, but the difficulty was managing on my own, because this is such a small outfit. There was no special service for me. I scanned my textbooks page at a time. Normally when my daughter has gone to bed, like at 1 or 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, before I set off for work the next day and then school again. But that was a small sacrifice I felt I made for the ability to be able to study. And I did pretty well in school. On my first year, I came in top in my class. But the true difficulty started when I wanted a job with my qualifications. People say that you have an impairment, and therefore you have a limitation. I handicap you, I classify you as disabled, and therefore probably hard for me to give you a job. I sent out close to 400 or 500 resumes. I went for 2 or 3 interviews, and some of them when I was at the interview, one of the very nice ladies told me that, look, you've got all the experience we want, you've got all the qualifications that we want, but I'm sorry, because of your disability, we won't be able to give you the job, because your job scope involves going to work with people at risk. And that means going into a secure facility. And because you are blind, it's dangerous for you. And another funny one was that another employer said, well, the workplace is kind of dark, you know. And since you can't see, that might be a bit dangerous. Unfortunately, it doesn't really make a difference to me whether it's dark or bright. I don't see that anyway. But I strived on, and I'm very thankful for a very close friend of mine that saw and believed in me and believed in my ability to want to be a counselor. And together we set up the Safe Harbour, and it's been around for 1.5 years. We work with clients going through difficult times in their life, and we help them maximize their potential. Mainly I do most of the work. She's just supporting me. And that is my professional role. But I can't be a professional. I can't be a mother. I can't be an active person if I'm dependent on someone to drag me around and bring me around. And that was the difficulty I was facing around about the time that I was graduating, because my daughter was a little bit older. She was about 5 then. And many people would tell her, hey, you grow big already, girl. You must look after mommy, okay? Make sure she don't fall down. Mommy can't put down her weight, you know吗? And that was the sentiments. I was sitting back and thinking to myself, you know, why should a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, or a 14, 15-year-old teenager give up a date with a gorgeous, handsome boy just to bring mommy around, just because mommy can't see? That's not very right. And I wanted to make a little bit more difference in my life. And that's when I contacted the Guide Dogs Association and started my very long journey to getting my 4-legged furry eyes. And she has done me a huge difference in my life today. What she has done for me is enabled me to move around independently without the fear of bumping into someone, without the need to walk very slowly so that I don't walk into any walls. I have finally given back the freedom to move at the speed I want to move. I'm free to move around wherever I want to go on without being dependent on someone. And that is what that freedom has given me. But through all this, the underlying part of it all is when I believe that there is a way out, when I believe that I can find a way out, I disallow my impairment of my sensory impairment of my blindness to limit what I'm unable to do. I find ways around my challenges. I find ways around the difficulties that I have. And I find a way out. I'd like to challenge all of you here sitting today to think about one small area of impairment that you have in your life. You might not be blind like me, but all of us have a small impairment, a sense that we're not good enough, a sense that our math is horrible, a sense that our speaking abilities is horrible. Different things that limit us in our life. Just think of one. And I'd like to ask all of you to stand up and to tell the person on your left-hand side this time that I believe if you have a will, you'll find that way. And thank you.